Welcome to another episode of the Biker PM. I'm your host, Anthony Pavelich. Today we continue our conversation with Philippe Danielides. To find out more about Daniel, listen to part 1, but let's get started with part 2. So we found what's worked for you. What did you try that didn't work?
Yeah, well, one
besides just getting up and like, what do I want to work on?
Yeah,
because that's what a lot of people do that.
Yeah, so that's the one for sure, trying to make decisions on the fly and prioritize as you go. Prioritization is exhausting and it burns a lot of calories. And so aside from just having to switch and not being sure about your priorities, it also would physically drain me. So I would get to the end of the day tired, and it's true of for all of us as a process. So that was one. The second, which I spoke to before, was narrowing my product offering, getting clear on a few key business priorities, which in my case were the one-on-one program and the group program, and simplifying that and focusing 100% on those few things. So I guess the inverse, like what wasn't working, is trying to kind of sell and push out 10 different products or services at once, because I was trying to cover all of my bases. And along with that, I think was trying to reach all audiences. As a coach, and this depends on what your business is, if you're offering a product or a service, but the nature of coaching, right? I wanted to work with everyone, right? Generally speaking, coaches, we help people improve their lives, right? I help people, whatever.
That's our goal.
Right? You have problems? Great. I will help you solve your problems and make it better, which is generally applicable. But the problem was that I was like, that was my approach when I started. So anyone who had a problem, which was everyone, I can help you, which it was too vague for me to get a hold on. And because it was too vague for me, I think it was too vague for a lot of the people I was reaching out to. They had a general sense of what I did, but they weren't really sure if I was the right person for them, if I could help them with the more specific problems they had in their lives. So I think moving from being a generalist to having more focused expertise was another really big shift that I fought for a long time, but when I finally kind of embraced it and gave up on trying to serve everyone, it made a big difference in my business.
Yeah, they talk about if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to go out on your own, to define your avatar very well. Who is your ideal client? Too many people haven't done that, and I think that's one of the downfalls of people who are trying to be an entrepreneur. They don't have an avatar. They don't have that one person. They just
it's hard.
Summarize and categorize everybody. It can be, yeah.
It requires effort, and it's challenging, especially at the beginning when you don't know. So it's an uncomfortable place to be in, of trying to figure that out. And so we avoid it. Human beings naturally avoid what is unpleasant and uncomfortable, move toward what's comfortable. So this is our human nature at work in entrepreneurship. But there's a saying that I think I read this in, it's attributed to Abraham Lincoln. So where I read it maybe is less important, but it is, if you give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. Have you heard that before?
I haven't heard it, but it's a simile that that makes sense, because I can't remember. There's actually some law, they call it a law or whatever it is, that you will fill the time given to complete a task.
Yeah.
So even if you're given the 6 hours to cut down the tree, even though you only know it's going to take you 2 hours, you're going to find another way to fill those 4 hours.
Oh, interesting.
To cut down the tree.
Oh, interesting.
So it's very similar to.
Yeah, actually, so I hear how you got there, and that is true, that we will fill the space that we are given. But the way that Abraham Lincoln, I think, intended it, and we're projecting, I did not speak to him myself, is
was he not available?
He was not available. It's hard to get him booked. He's really in demand for podcasts. So
Okay.
You got to get on his calendar years in advance. But what I think he was getting at is we immediately like want to go into action. And so, right, if you want to chop down a tree, you're going to go and start chopping. And that's activity. And we in our culture feel good when we're doing stuff, right? We have this action bias. But if you go to a tree with a dull axe, and one of the reasons I don't like this example is because it's about, violence toward trees, which is
Against
not great with
your love for nature.
my nature brand. But it's if you just go with a dull axe, you're going to be chopping, but you're going to be chopping for a long time and you're going to tire yourself out. And what he was saying is he's going to spend 4 hours doing the pre-work of sharpening the axe, which is, I think, similar to knowing your avatar and knowing what you offer,
Yeah.
right? The introspective work where it doesn't look like you're doing anything, but that's really essential so that when you go to take action, when he goes to chop the tree, that sharp axe is going to make a difference, right? Fewer chops, easier to do when you actually move into action. Similar for businesses. And I was this way. I was so eager to just get going and to start doing stuff. Oh, let me get a website up. Let me start offering. Let me start marketing and reaching out to people before I had really thought things through and sharpened the axe of my business, which was my identity as an entrepreneur, what I was offering, what audience, right, I was serving, who my ideal client was. And so that was probably a year of trying to chop down a tree with a dull axe before I got so tired and frustrated that I said, well, there must be another way. So it wasn't through some insight or wisdom, but it was by kind of like failing and realizing that way wasn't working for me, that I opened up to this other way forward. And that's when I hired a coach, a marketing coach, a business coach to help me and sharpen my axe in my own business.
I'm going to go somewhere really silly with that and say, because normally the simile is it's a double-edged sword, but we can say it's a double-edged axe on this end and say that you need to do that pre-work. You need to sharpen the axe, but some people can spend too much time sharpening.
Yeah.
You can over sharpen the axe. Some people do get that fear of taking action.
Yeah.
Or they want to be perfect when they go to chop down that tree, and you can't always be perfect. Sometimes you have to sharpen it just enough to move forward.
Yeah.
And to get the tree down.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right. And that speaks to also what you were saying before about we'll just fill the time. We'll keep on preparing and going if we give ourselves more and more time to prepare, and we can preparing for months, getting ready to go. But what I think of in that example also is you're not going to chop down a tree in one swing of the axe. And I certainly also suffered under this mistake. I'm going to get my website to be exactly what I want it to be. And once it's done, all right, I'll have it out there. So that mentality of doing one thing that's going to take care of everything, right? We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to make a lot of progress in one step, but also then to figure out what that one right step is. And I think a lot of the paralysis just comes from the expectations that we place on finding that one right thing to do that's gonna help you. And I don't know how it's been in your business, but what I found is like there is no one way.
There isn't.
Forward. So you learn more from just thinking about it in advance, but then you try something and you learn either it worked and you keep doing it, or it didn't work. And that negative feedback also helps you to refine your direction and strategy. And that works way better and will move you forward much more quickly than trying before you start to figure out the one thing to do that will get you all the way.
I want to ask you about processes again, but
Sure.
then I want to reach back to something else. How do you organize your day? How do you've got you're working backwards from your quarterly to your monthly to your weekly to your daily, but how do you organize your day so that you are effective in getting everything done to reach your goals?
So I think, and tell me if I'm answering your question right. So the night before, I will plan out my day, what I want to do. So I'll usually have 2 or 3 bigger tasks, I guess, right, that are not like the ordinary like routine things that I would do that I want to get accomplished that day. And I will literally block out the time from morning. I usually start around 8 to 9 till 5, 6, whatever, on a busy day longer. And so I'll just map out my day, the coaching sessions that I have, and then the other tasks that I have for the day. And just having a visual representation of it, because I'll write it out, has been really helpful. Has been a helpful way of disciplining me to not overload my days, because I can see it. And it's this gut check of, wow, you have all these sessions, and you're also saying that you're going to finish this website page, and you're going to send out this email, and you're going to post this on social media. It's just like, it looks totally crazy. So that's been a way to check my expectations that I set for myself about what I can accomplish in a day. In terms of more of the rhythm of my day, and this is something that I've shifted over time, I start my day with reading and writing. And that's just my morning routine that I have set for myself. And so I spend about a half hour, 45 minutes before I get to the work, right, my coaching work, setting myself up kind of like mentally for what I want, for the day, how I want to show up that day, and incorporating a morning routine. And it can be different for everyone. Some people like meditation or yoga or exercise. It is really, again, about fit. I don't think there's one thing that if you did in the morning, you'd be great. But finding out what works for you and experimenting. Again, there's no one chop of the axe. Experimenting, figuring out what helps you in your morning to connect with, let's say, your highest, best self, and to bring yourself to a place of centering and calm, so that when you start doing the things, you are doing them from that place. So having a morning routine before I get going with work has been a really big addition, a really helpful addition to my day. And I've been doing that for the last 6 months with more consistency. I'll build in a buffer in the middle of my day. This is another thing I learned from Taylor Welch. I had a tendency, and maybe you can relate to this or know others who do this, of stacking up my day one thing after another, right? It's just one brick, 9 to 10 this, 10 to 11 this, 11 to 11:30, 11:30 to 12:30. What would happen is my first task, let's say, would go longer. It didn't go as planned, which still happens all the time. And that would push everything back. And then for the rest of the day, I would feel like I was behind, or I'd get to the end of the day and just run out of time. Well, I get to the end of the day and then keep going because I had more things on my list, or I'd just run out of time, which for all of the, let's say, things that I had accomplished that day, the taste that would be left in my mouth was, man, I didn't follow through on everything that I said, which would negatively affect my mood and my confidence. And so what Taylor Welch advised, which has been helpful, is building in a buffer that's almost like, right, shocks, where you're, right, you on your motorcycle. I don't know if motorcycles have shocks or not. Maybe sort of like bikes, like dirt bikes, right?
They do.
Right. So to absorb it. So it depends on the day, but I'll have like an hour or a few hours of buffer just to absorb the unexpected things that happen in the day where I would get knocked off course, so that after that buffer, I can stay on track with the rest of my day. That was a really big added feature that has really helped me to stay kind of disciplined and on track. So.
That's a good point, because I know that I've done that. I'll every morning I get up and I go through what my goals are for the day. I do it in the morning, sit down with coffee. And there have been days that I've put too much on. And by the end of the day, I'm like, why did I think I was going to get all that done?
Yeah.
Was it my brain still asleep, or was it not enough coffee in my brain yet to tell me that, to be smart about it? But yeah, it's just like when in project management, or we're scheduling resources, you can't schedule somebody 8 hours a day to do work because they're never going to get 8 hours of work done in a day.
Yeah.
You have to take an account. You're going to get up and go to the bathroom. You're going to get a call that you have to take. You're going to, somebody's going to interrupt you. Something's going to happen to take up time that you had planned for something else.
Yeah. And I don't know how it is for you. It's maybe having that wisdom in advance and then factoring that into how you manage a project. But the way that this finally sunk in for me was by failing enough times and getting to the end of the day and being frustrated and getting down on myself, and then looking at my schedule. One of the gifts of just having a schedule that I print out and then I write things down is it provides a paper trail of evidence. I would just see visually in front of me, oh man, look what I did again and again and again. And I would just pick up on these patterns. And that's what helped me to finally understand and adjust my schedule, because by doing it the way that I had at the beginning of my career as an entrepreneur, of just on the fly or every day coming up with a plan and just having a to-do list, the same thing would be happening, but I would have no way of really tracking and recognizing that as a pattern to then adjust. Does that make sense?
Very much, yes.
Yeah.
I want to switch back to your business real quick, because we are getting, we're getting close. Your coaching business is taking people from, where they feel like they should be, and you have that, or where they feel like they should be to where they're happy. And you use this analogy in one of your videos and on your website of the bridge.
Mm.
And so I want you to talk about the bridge and how you use that bridge.
So I think what you're talking about, the bridge, which I talk about relating to the 1 month, 1 goal program.
Yes.
1 month, 1 goal challenge. So.
Because I liked that analogy.
Oh, great. Yeah. So the way that I think about a bridge is really just the function of a bridge, because bridges look different. And the image that I have on my website is of a small footbridge over a stream in the woods. And bridges, the function of a bridge is to help us pass over an area that seems impassable, whether that's a river or a ravine, whatever it is. And that's, I think, how many of us feel in our lives when we're thinking about making big changes. Maybe we have an idea of what's on the other side of what we'd like to do, but then we look down and we see this big ravine, this canyon, and we wonder how we'll get over to the other side. And so the function of a bridge, like metaphorically applied to our life, is purpose and focus. A bridge is narrow, right? It's one path forward. And so just recognizing where you want to get to, so the other side of that bridge, you only have to come up with one plan to get there. So the more you can focus your attention on what matters, the easier it will be to cross an area that seems uncrossable. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I like that analogy. I like how the visual of it on the website, because it is a perfect metaphor of overcoming obstacles.
Yeah.
And getting, leaving one place and ending up in another place. And you can do it and look down and say, you know what, you're not stopping me.
Yeah, that's right. And the other, it's interesting, I don't think it's on my website, but I've talked about this, is on that walk where I took the picture of that footbridge, there was also a fallen tree that had fallen over the creek that you could walk across as well. And so I took both those pictures and was asking people, well, what do these have in common? And what do we think are different? And they were both, what they have in common is that they were both bridges, in the sense that you could walk across the footbridge, or you could also make your way over this fallen tree to get to the other side. So they both served it. But what it also highlighted, I think, was the expectation that we bring to this process of getting to the other side, whether that's a new career or a life where we feel fulfilled, or physical goals that we may set for ourselves, and judging the expectations we bring to what the bridge should look like. A plan should look like this. It should be neat. and linear and kind of like man-made, and I should know exactly how to get there. And we can sometimes get so focused on what we expect the plan will look like and what the process will be that we either ignore, diminish other opportunities to cross. Because what I found in my life, in my business, like the bridge from where I was to where I am now looks a lot more like a fallen tree with all the, it does a really neat, you know, sawed and sanded bridge.
So I think about what you just said about the fallen tree and the bridge, and or the man-made bridge, and you can look at it as that you can take this planned way, or you can look for the opportunities that are accidental and take that way. So because that tree is an accidental bridge that, you know what, but it's an opportunity that you may not have planned out.
Yeah, I think opportunity is absolutely the right word. Knowing where you want to go, so wanting to go to the other side, and whatever that means in your life is really important. But once it's essential. But once you have an idea, oh, I want to cross, my goal is to get to the other side, then that also helps you to filter opportunities. That tree that's fallen over is meaningless in a sense if you don't want to cross. But the second that you realize that that's where you want to go, all of a sudden it shows up as an opportunity if you're open to it. So I think that having a clear idea of what your goals are, sharpening the axe, or doing that work, which is a lot of the initial work that I do with clients when we start working together, is a really helpful guide because it then informs the opportunities that present themselves.
And hopefully that tree fell and you didn't use an axe to knock it down.
I did not commit any violence or any other. I appreciated it and walked across it.
So let's go ahead before we close out. Two things. First, what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who wanted to start a business, become an entrepreneur, or in the case of your business, wanted to find a better life? What would be one piece of advice that you would give somebody?
One piece of advice is don't compare yourself to others. And in the case of specifically talking about being an entrepreneur, right? Don't compare yourself to people who are further down the path. Learn from them for sure, but comparing you and where you are right now to where you see other people are who have maybe been at this for 5-10 years is, to me, and has been a recipe for overwhelm and doubt. And when I'm overwhelmed and doubting myself, I don't take action.
I think, I've heard that the only person you should compare yourself to is yourself yesterday.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, absolutely. We're all on our own journeys. This is something that I, repeat to myself all the time, because it's easy for that thought of like, oh, I should be here by now, right? Or I'm behind. Living in New York City, it's on display all the time. I know we're not the only ones, but we're very measured and competitive here. So we're always looking to other people, and it's really easy to fall into that trap, but it's really more about relative progress, like you said, compared to you yesterday, than it is to looking kind of like horizontally or out to the future to people who are on their own path. Learn from them for sure, right? That's what coaching is also really helpful. It's to learn from other people's experiences, but you can learn from people without falling into the trap of comparison. And that's been the most important thing that I remind myself of. And usually when I get into a rut or get into trouble, it's because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. If people want to find out more about you and your coaching, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Sure. They can go to my website. It's innercurrentcoach.com. So inner, like the inside inner, current, like the water, coach.com. And that's where they can figure out how to get in touch with me if they're interested in one-on-one coaching. We set up a time to talk before we even think about actually working together, just to get to know one another and see if there's a fit, and also where they can learn about my group programs, the 1 month, 1 goal challenge that I run on a monthly basis and the workshops that I offer as well.
Well, great, Philippe. I appreciate you being here. It's been a great conversation, and it's a lot of value, I think, that you've given today.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Biker PM. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. And remember, if you're an entrepreneur that wants to be with like-minded individuals and improving their project management skills, join the Biker PM Facebook group. Until next time.